August 26, 1071. An emperor begs for mercy in the dirt. His sword broken, his army gone. 40,000 men destroyed in 4 hours. But here's what nobody tells you. They weren't defeated by a stronger force, they were tricked. Lured into a trap so simple, so perfect that military academies still study it today. One tactic, one moment, one decision that changed the world forever. This is Manzikert, and trust me, you've never heard a battle story like this. The year is 1070. Something is very wrong in the Byzantine Empire. Villagers along the Armenian frontier wake to find their neighbours missing. Gone. Just empty houses and cold fires. By noon they understand why. Smoke rises from the eastern hills, not from cooking fires, from burning towns. They come without warning. Horsemen appearing from nowhere, striking before dawn, vanishing before soldiers arrive. Byzantine patrols march out to find them. But the fields are always empty, the enemy always gone. It's like fighting shadows. And here's the terrifying part. Nobody knows where they'll hit next. Every village, every farm, every family, they're all targets now. In the cities, people whisper one question. Where is the emperor? Where are the legions that once made the earth shake? The answer comes slowly. Carried by refugees with haunted eyes. The army is broken. The treasury is empty and nobody is coming to save them. Wait until you hear what happens when Constantinople finally realizes how bad things really are. But then something changes. Something unexpected. A new emperor arises in 1068. Romanos Diogenes. Not a prince, not a noble, a soldier. A general from the frontier who knows what war actually looks like. The palace nobles hate him. The bureaucrats fear him. But the army remembers. And what Romanos decides to do next will shock you. Romanos makes a vow, a promise so bold, so reckless, that his own advisors think he's lost his mind. He will march east. He will face the Turks. He will crush them in one decisive battle, one campaign, one summer, and he will bring peace to the frontier forever. His generals warn him. It's suicide, they say, but Romanos doesn't care, and you won't believe what he does next. Spring 1068. Romanos gathers what's left of the Byzantine army. 20,000 men, mercenaries from across Europe, Normans, Germans, even some Turks fighting for Byzantine gold. He marches east into the wasteland. And at first, incredibly, it works. He recaptures fortresses. He drives the raiders back. For a moment, just a moment, hope returns. But here's what makes this story so frustrating. The enemy won't stand and fight. The Turks scatter when charged. They fire arrows from horseback and disappear into the hills. Romanos' heavy cavalry charges into empty valleys. His infantry marches toward abandoned camps. It's maddening. How do you defeat an enemy you can never catch? Back in Constantinople, the nobles start to whisper. Romanos is wasting money, wasting lives. The campaigns achieve nothing. And the Doukas family, the most powerful nobles in the empire, they watch and wait. They smile politely at court. But behind closed doors, they're already plotting, already planning. And what they do later will change everything. Then comes the message that makes Romanos' blood run cold. A fortress has fallen, Manzikert, a small castle near Lake Van. You might think this doesn't matter, just 1-4, but you'd be wrong, dead wrong, because Manzikert sits on the road to the heart of the empire. If the Turks hold it, they can bring armies, not raiders, and suddenly everyone realizes this isn't raiding anymore, this is invasion. Romanos makes his choice. 1071. He will march with the largest Byzantine army in decades. 40,000 men, maybe more. He will retake Manzikert. He will crush the Turkish raiders once and for all. He will prove to everyone, to the nobles, to the people, to history itself, that Rome still has jeweled teeth. But what he doesn't know, what he can't possibly know, is that across the mountains, another man is making plans too. His name is Alp Arslan, the heroic lion, Sultan of the Seljuk Empire. 42 years old, tall, fierce, a warrior who has never known defeat. Men say he can split an arrow with another arrow. They say when he draws his sword, enemies flee without fighting. And right now, he's preparing to march on Egypt to crush his real enemies, the Fatimid heretics. But wait until you hear what happens when his spies bring him news about Romanos. Alp Arslan does not want this war. Listen carefully. This is important. He sends a message to Romanos. Peace, friendship, a treaty. Let's avoid bloodshed, the message says. We can be neighbours, not enemies. And Romanos reads this message, this genuine offer of peace, and you won't believe what he does with it. He crumples it in his fist. No, he says, tell your Sultan I'm coming for him. When Alp Arslan hears this, he doesn't rage. He doesn't panic. He smiles, a cold smile, a knowing smile, because he understands something Romanos doesn't. Sometimes the side that attacks isn't the side that chooses the battlefield. He calls his commanders, he summons his horsemen. Syria can wait. Egypt can wait. Everything can wait. Because an emperor is marching east with an army too big to hide and too proud to retreat. And that, my friends, is exactly what Alp Arslan has been waiting for. Summer and 1071. The Byzantine army moves east like a slow-moving storm. 40,000 men stretching for miles. Infantry, cavalry, siege engines. Supply wagons creaking under the weight. From a distance it looks unstoppable, but get closer, look harder, and you'll see the cracks, the mercenaries arguing over pay, the auxiliaries who don't trust each other, the officers who obey different masters. This isn't one army, it's 10 armies wearing the same flag. The march is brutal, the heat's suffocating, and then it happens. The first sign that this campaign is cursed. The German mercenaries riot one night. They demand more gold, more food, more respect. Romanos has no choice. He dismisses them. They leave angry, taking their horses and their experience with them. The army shrinks before it even sees the enemy. And this is just the beginning. At Sebastia, the army rests. And here, one of Romanos's most trusted generals, Nicephorus Bryennius, speaks up. We should stop here, he says. Fortify, make the enemy come to us. Other generals agree, but Romanos shakes his head. No, we march forward. We show strength, not fear. And this decision, this single moment of pride, will haunt him forever, because what happens next is exactly what Bryennius feared. Near Lake Van, Romanos does something that makes military historians scream even today. He splits his army. In half, 20,000 men under General Tarchanaiotes march north to besiege Kliat. Romanos takes the other 20,000 and heads straight for Manzikert. Why? Why would any commander divide his forces in enemy territory? Some say arrogance, some say ambition, but here's what nobody expected. That split is exactly what Alp Arslan was waiting for. What Romanos doesn't know, what keeps you up at night when you understand it, is that Turkish scouts have been watching every step. They know exactly where he is, exactly how many men he has, exactly how weak his army really is, and they're reporting everything back to Alp Arslan. The Byzantines think they're hunting, but they're the ones being hunted. August 23rd. Romanos reaches Manzikert. The fortress is small, the garrison weak. He takes it in hours. Byzantine banners rise on the walls, wine is passed around. Some soldiers actually celebrate. They think the campaign is already won. They have no idea that 100 miles away, Tarchanaiotes and his 20,000 men have vanished, just disappeared, and nobody knows where they went. August 24th, dawn. Foraging parties ride out from the Byzantine camp looking for supplies. Most return, but some don't. By noon, scouts come back with news that freezes every heart. The Seljuk army is near, very near. Romanos doesn't believe it. He sends out the Armenian general Basilakes with cavalry to investigate. If it's raiders, drive them off. If it's more, come back. Simple orders. But Basilakes never comes back. Basilakes rides over a hill and sees the valley beyond, and his blood turns to ice. Thousands of Turkish horsemen. Thousands. They sit motionless on their mounts, watching, waiting. He tries to retreat. But the Turks surge forward from every direction, not in a line, like a flood. Arrows darken the sky. Men fall. Horses scream. Some Byzantines make it back to camp, many don't. And Basilakes himself is dragged from his horse, captured, gone. That night, August 25th, is the quietest night of Romanos's life. Too quiet. The Byzantine soldiers sleep in their armour. They can hear the Turkish camp across the valley. Voices, horses, the sound of thousands preparing for war. And then something incredible happens. A messenger rides into camp carrying a white flag. He brings one final offer from Alp Arslan. Peace. Withdraw now, sign a treaty, avoid the bloodshed, and what Romanos does next seals his fate forever. Romanos reads the message. His generals watch. Some beg him to accept. We're outnumbered. Tarchanaiotes is gone. We should negotiate. But Romanos crumples the paper. No, I came here to end this. Tell your sultan he'll have nothing from me but steel. The messenger bows and leaves, and when he delivers Romanos's words to Alp Arslan, the sultan nods slowly. He expected this. He's been preparing for this, and tomorrow he'll show the world exactly what happens when pride meets strategy. That night, Alp Arslan does something that makes his soldiers' hearts stop. He removes his rich robes. He strips down to a simple white garment, a funeral shroud. If I die tomorrow, he tells his men, I'm already dressed for burial. Then he turns to them, his voice carrying across the camp. We are outnumbered. We face the empire that has stood for 1,000 years, but we do not fear, because we fight for something greater than ourselves. His warriors kneel, not because they have to, because they want to. And that moment, that unity, is something the Byzantine army will never have. Midnight. In the Byzantine camp, disaster strikes. Turkish auxiliaries, men fighting in Romanos's ranks, slip away into darkness. They ride to join their kinsmen. Desertion spreads like plague. Other Turkish soldiers whisper among themselves, why are we fighting our own people? For what? For an emperor who doesn't trust us? By dawn, hundreds are gone. The Byzantine army shrinks again, and Romanos watches it happen, powerless to stop it. August 26, 1071, Friday. The sun rises pale and cold. Both armies prepare. But here's what makes this day so devastating. Romanos thinks he's about to fight a battle. Alp Arslan knows he's about to spring a trap. And the difference between those two perspectives is the difference between victory and annihilation. Stay with me. Because what happens in the next few hours will shock you to your core. Dawn. The Byzantine army forms outside Manzikert. 20,000 men in tight rows, shields raised, spears pointing at the sky. It looks impressive. It looks unstoppable. Infantry in the centre, cavalry on both wings, and in the rear the reserve. 20,000 fresh troops under Andronikos Doukas. Remember that name, because what he does later will haunt Byzantine history forever. Romanos rides along the front lines. He wears full armour despite the heat. His purple cloak marks him from a distance. His advisors begged him to stay back, to command from safety like a true emperor. But Romanos refuses. I will not watch while others die, he says. And this courage, this personal bravery, is exactly what makes his betrayal so much worse. Across the valley, the Seljuk army gathers, but they don't form tight ranks. They go spread out in a wide crescent, like the horns of the moon, loose, flexible, mobile. The Byzantines see this and think the Turks are disorganized. They're wrong, dead wrong, because that crescent is about to become a noose, and it's already around the Byzantine army's neck. Noon. A horn sounds, long and low. The Turkish cavalry begins to move, not charging, not attacking, just riding, slowly at first, then faster, and as they ride they shoot. Thousands of arrows rising in black clouds, falling like rain on the Byzantine lines. Men raise shields. The arrows thud into wood, into leather, into flesh. The first screams echo across the valley. Romanos gives the order. Advance! The Byzantine army moves forward, shields locked, drums beating. This is Roman discipline, Roman power. They march into the valley, steady, controlled, unstoppable, or so they think. But here's what they don't understand yet. Every step forward is a step deeper into the trap. And the Turks aren't retreating because they're afraid. They're retreating because that's the plan. The Turkish horsemen pull back, not running, not fleeing, dancing. They fire arrows while riding at a full gallop. They turn in their saddles and shoot backward without slowing. The famous Parthian shot, a tactic as old as the steppes themselves. And the Byzantines have never faced anything like it. They advance, the Turks retreat, they advance more, the Turks retreat more. Hours pass, the Byzantines have killed almost no one, but they're exhausted, frustrated, and deep, so deep in enemy territory. By mid-afternoon something incredible happens. The Turkish army suddenly breaks. All of them. They turn and flee east towards the hills. The Byzantine soldiers see it. After hours of torture, of arrows, of endless retreat, the enemy is finally running. "They flee," someone shouts. "We've won!" Cheers rise from the ranks. Units break formation to chase the fleeing Turks. The tight Byzantine line fractures, and Romanos, watching from the centre, feels ice in his veins, because he knows this is the trap. The Turkish retreat stops, every horseman wheels around as one, and from every hill, from every valley, from every hidden position, more Seljuk warriors appear. Thousands of them. They've been waiting, hiding, and now they strike. The Byzantine army is spread across miles of open ground, separated, exposed, and suddenly arrows come from every direction. The Seljuk cavalry charges, not in one mass, in 100 small groups. They sweep around the Byzantine flanks. They cut off retreat. They fire into the confused ranks. Panic spreads. Men who've never fought before throw down their weapons and run. Turkish auxiliaries join their kinsmen. The desertion becomes a flood, and on the Byzantine left wing, General Bryennius watches his formation disintegrate. "Hold!" he screams. "Hold the line!" But the line is already broken. Romanos looks back toward the camp, toward the reserve. 20,000 fresh troops under Andronikos Doukas, 20,000 men who could save them. They haven't moved. "Why aren't they advancing?" Romanos shouts. His officers have no answer, but some understand the Doukas family has been waiting for this, waiting for Romanos to fail, and now they'll let him die, because that's how you win civil wars. You let your enemies destroy each other. Romanos gives the signal: retreat, pull back to the camp, regroup with the reserve. The trumpets blow, the order goes out. But in the chaos, in the dust and blood and screaming, the signal is misunderstood. Some soldiers think the emperor has fallen. Others believe it's every man for himself. The retreat becomes a stampede. Men trample each other. They throw away shields and swords to run faster, and the Turks chase them, cutting them down like wheat. And then comes the moment that breaks what's left of Byzantine pride. Andronikos Doukas, commanding the reserve, gives his own order. "We're leaving," he tells his men. "The emperor's dead. The battle is lost. We march back to Constantinople." His officers protest. "But we can see him. He's still fighting." Doukas' face is cold. "He is finished, and I will not die for him." The reserve turns. 20,000 men who never fought. They march away from their emperor, away from their duty, away from history's judgment. But history will remember. Romanos sees the reserve leaving. And in that moment he knows. It's over. He's surrounded. His guard is down to a few hundred men. The Turks close in from every side. He could run. He could try to escape. But Romanos is a soldier first. Always has been. He draws his sword. "We die like Romans," he shouts. And for one final hour, maybe more, a small circle of Byzantine warriors holds against an ocean of Turkish riders. They fight with swords when spears break, with daggers when swords are lost, with hands when nothing else remains. One by one they fall, until only Romanos and a handful of guards still stand. An arrow hits his hand. His sword falls. He reaches for it with his left hand. More arrows strike. His horse collapses. He falls to the ground. The Turks swarm over him. They pull off his helmet. They don't know who he is, just another dying Byzantine. Then someone sees the purple cloth beneath his armour. "Stop!" a Turkish commander screams. "This is their emperor." The fighting ceases. Romanos is dragged to his feet. His face is bleeding. His armour is shattered, but his eyes are still defiant. They've done the impossible. They've captured the emperor of Rome, the first time in centuries, the first time since the ancient wars. And when this news reaches Alp Arslan, even he can barely believe it. Evening. Romanos is brought to the Sultan's tent. He stumbles, pushed by guards, covered in dust and blood. Alp Arslan steps down from his seat. He walks around the prisoner slowly, studying him. Then suddenly he places his foot on Romanos' neck. A ritual humiliation, the conquered beneath the conqueror. Some Turks cheer, but then Alp Arslan removes his foot. He reaches down, he helps the emperor stand. "You're my guest now," he says. "Not my slave." That night, an incredible thing happens. The emperor and the sultan sit together. They drink from the same cup. They talk like equals, and Alp Arslan asks the question that defines the moment. What would you have done to me if our positions were reversed? Romanos could lie, he could beg, but he's still an emperor, even in defeat. I would have killed you, he says, or paraded you through Constantinople in chains. Alp Arslan smiles, a sad smile. Then my punishment is heavier. I forgive you. Over 8 days they negotiate. The terms are harsh but not impossible. Romanos must pay the 1.5 million gold coins, and more every year after. He must surrender fortresses, he must become an ally, and his daughter must marry the Sultan's son. When it's all agreed, Alp Arslan releases him. A Turkish escort rides with him, carrying a banner of peace. Romanos rides west toward home. He believes his ordeal is over. He has no idea that the worst is yet to come. While Romanos was captive, news of his defeat reached Constantinople, and the nobles moved fast. So fast. The Doukas family declared him deposed. They crowned Michael Doukas as sole emperor. They seized the treasury. They rewrote history to make Romanos the villain. And when messengers brought word that Romanos was alive, that he was released, that he was coming home, they didn't celebrate. They panicked, because a living freed Romanos was a threat they hadn't planned for. Romanos reaches Constantinople. He expects a hero's welcome. He survived. He negotiated peace. He saved what could be saved. Instead, the gates are locked. Soldiers line the walls, not to welcome him, to keep him out. A messenger shouts down, "By order of Emperor Michael Doukas, you are declared a traitor and rebel. Turn back or face execution." Romanos stares at the closed gates. The city he fought to defend has locked him out. And you won't believe how dark this gets. Romanos tries to raise an army. A few loyal soldiers join him, veterans who remember, men who still believe in honor. But the Doukas family has more gold, more troops, more everything. They send an army to hunt him down, and Romanos fights one final battle, not against Turks, against his own people, against the empire he bled for. He loses, he's captured, and the men who capture him show no mercy, none. June 29th, 1072. They bring Romanos to a dark room. They hold him down, they heat an iron until it glows red, and they press it to his eyes, both of them. The man who rode to Manzikert as emperor, the man who faced 40,000 enemies without flinching, screams as they blind him. Not carefully, not with precision, with cruelty, with hate. The wound becomes infected. Weeks later, on a forgotten island, Romanos Diogenes dies. Blind, broken, abandoned by the empire he loved. And with Romanos dead, the Byzantine Empire descends into chaos. Generals fight for the throne, nobles betray each other. The army, already shattered at Manzikert, tears itself apart in civil wars. Nobody guards the frontier. Nobody protects the villages. Nobody even notices when the Turks start coming. Not as an army, as a migration. Thousands of nomads looking for land, and they find it. Empty, undefended, waiting. By 1080, less than 10 years after Manzikert, most of Anatolia is lost. The heartland of the Byzantine Empire, the land that fed Constantinople, the provinces that provided soldiers. Gone. Turkish warlords establish kingdoms. Mosques replace churches. The Turkish language spreads. And Anatolia, Christian for 1,000 years, begins its transformation into what will become Turkey, all because of one battle, one day, one trap. But Alp Arslan doesn't celebrate for long. November 1072, barely a year after his greatest victory. He's campaigning in Central Asia. He captures a rebel fortress commander, a nobody named Yusuf. Alp Arslan mocks him. "You thought you could resist me?" The prisoner says nothing. Then, when the guards look away, Yusuf draws a hidden dagger. He lunges, and the man who defeated Rome dies from a single stab wound. The heroic lion, dead at the 43, killed not by armies, but by a prisoner he underestimated. 20 years after Manzikert, a desperate letter arrives in Rome from the Byzantine emperor. "We need help," it says. "The Turks are at our gates. Send soldiers. Send anything." Pope Urban II reads the letter, and he makes a decision that echoes through history. He calls for a crusade, not to defend Byzantium, to reclaim Jerusalem. To take the Holy Land from Muslim control. The Crusades begin, 200 years of blood and fire, all tracing back to that valley in Armenia. Centuries pass, empires rise and fall, But Manzikert never dies. For Byzantium, it becomes the wound that won't heal. Every defeat afterward, every lost province traces back to that day. Historians argue for generations. Was it Romanos' fault? Was it betrayal? Was it just bad luck? But the result is clear. After Manzikert, Byzantium never recovered. Never. For the Turks, Manzikert becomes legend. The day nomads defeated an empire. The day Anatolia opened. The day that led to the Ottoman Empire. Every Turkish child learns the story. Alp Arslan, the heroic lion, the feigned retreat, the captured emperor. Even today, 1,000 years later, Turkey celebrates August 26th as Manzikert Day. The memory lives, the pride endures. Manzikert taught the world a lesson about warfare, about how a smaller force beats a larger one, the feigned retreat, mobility over armour, speed over strength. The Mongols used it to conquer half the world. The Ottomans perfected it against Europe. Even modern guerrilla fighters study it, because the principle never changes. Appear weak, draw the enemy forward, strike when they're overextended. But perhaps the deepest lesson is about empires themselves. Byzantium wasn't destroyed by external enemies, it was destroyed from within, by political rivalry, by generals who chose power over duty, by betrayal, by arrogance. When Andronikos Doukas abandoned his emperor, he thought he was being clever. Instead, he doomed his empire, because without unity, without loyalty, without trust, no army can stand. No matter how many soldiers, no matter how much history, the numbers still haunt historians. 40,000 Byzantines entered that valley. Maybe 10,000 died. Another 10,000 scattered. The rest captured or deserted. Against 20,000 Seljuks. On paper, it should have been a Byzantine victory. But battles aren't fought on paper. They're fought in dust and blood and fear. And on that August day, the side that looked weaker won. The side that looked beaten triumphed because they understood something the Byzantines forgot. In war, confidence without wisdom is suicide. Numbers without discipline are meaningless. Strength without unity is weakness. The Byzantine Empire learned this lesson too late. And the cost was everything. Their army, their frontier, their future. All lost in a single afternoon because they chased an enemy who refused to be caught. Today, if you visit eastern Turkey, you can stand in that valley. It's quiet now. Farmers grow wheat where soldiers died. The grass grows green in spring. Nothing marks the place where empires bled. But if you close your eyes, if you listen carefully, you can almost hear it. The thunder of hooves, the whistle of arrows, the screams of men realizing too late that they've been tricked, that they've run forward into their own destruction. Because that's what Manzikert really was. Not just a battle, not just a defeat, but a turning point. One of those rare moments when the world pivots, when everything changes. Before Manzikert, the Mediterranean belonged to Christian empires. After Manzikert, the balance shifted forever. Turkish warriors pushed into the heart of Christendom. They brought Islam. They brought new languages, new customs, new kingdoms, and they never left. And here's what keeps historians awake at night. Manzikert wasn't inevitable. It could have been avoided, if Romanos hadn't divided his army, if he'd accepted peace, if Doukas hadn't betrayed him. Any one of these things changes the outcome. The Byzantine Empire might have survived another 1,000 years. Anatolia might still be Christian today. The entire history of the world might be different, all because of decisions made by men who thought they knew better, men who were wrong. So ask yourself this: when pride meets strategy, which wins? When loyalty fails, who suffers? When empires betray themselves, who really loses? Manzikert answers all these questions, and the answers are written in blood across the Armenian highlands, written in the fall of Constantinople 400 years later, written in the rise of the Ottoman Empire, written in every history book that asks how the world became what it is today. Two men met in a valley in 1071, Romanos Diogenes and Alp Arslan, emperor and sultan, Christian and Muslim, Rome and the steppes. One sought glory through conquest, the other sought survival through wisdom. One charged forward with confidence, the other retreated with purpose, and when the dust settled, the man who advanced was kneeling in the dirt, while the man who retreated stood victorious. This is the story of Manzikert, a story about 40,000 men destroyed by 20,000, about an empire broken by its own pride, about a trap so perfect it changed the world. But more than that, it's a story about human nature, about hubris, about betrayal, about how empires fall not because they're defeated, but because they defeat themselves. And that lesson, that terrible, painful lesson, is why we still remember, why we still study, why we still tell this story 1,000 years later. August 26, 1071. The sun sets over the valley of Manzikert. The fighting is over. The screaming has stopped. Turkish warriors gather the wounded. Byzantine survivors flee into the hills. And in the centre of it all, an emperor sits in his captor's tent, drinking from a cup held by the man who destroyed him. 2 enemies, 2 empires, 1 moment, 1 battle, 1 day when everything changed. And the shadow of that day stretches across centuries, reaching even to us. Because we are living in the world that Manzikert created, whether we know it or not, whether we remember it or not, the echo never dies.